Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. How you doing today? Okay, so we're going to be kind of talking about a lot of things here at first, but the main point of the day is we're going to be going through the bones again. This is going to be basically focusing on what I was talking about in my live about the missteps in the Teresa Halbach investigation, but this is going to focus really around the bones, things happening around the bones, and just all of the stuff around the bones. And I'm going to probably do another upload later with documents and things going over some of the other issues of the missteps in this investigation, i.e. Brendan, the key, cabinet, Colburn, those sort of things. So I may make a couple other ones for just those couple issues, whatever. But today we're going to be talking about the bones. Okay. Let me start out by saying this. This is not a live. Okay, I'm here talking to you, but I'm not doing this live. I'm pre-recorded here. Okay, that means this is an upload. There's going to be documents shown here today. There's going to be all those things that people who originally got interested in my channel and subscribed to me and the things that they really enjoyed. This is going to be one of those videos, so I hope you guys stick around. Okay, so what I also want to talk about real quick also is I just noticed that the Guilters have just uploaded a trailer on somebody's on a channel, onto a YouTube channel, where it says something like, okay, you guys had your fun. I believe that's directed at those of us who hosted Mammothon. And it says now it's our turn, and then it says Guiltathon. And so I guess they're gonna do a little 48-hour live event. So I thought that was gonna be, I'm actually kind of intrigued and interested to actually hear what they might have to say, and how many of them actually we see them on screen. I thought that might be interesting as well. But so I just went ahead and said, I thought, I kind of eager to see what they come up with, to be perfectly honest. They haven't put out a date. It just says coming soon. So I commented and said, I'm waiting with great anticipation. It is difficult to coordinate, though, so, all that sort of stuff. I was just, but I am actually interested to see what they come up with, if this actually ends up happening, or if this is just some kind of a, little fun they were having, playing around. We'll have to see, right? Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. So I went ahead and got my brand new Mammothon tie. Like that, folks? Is that cool? So put that on so we can do this video today. Okay, so what we're going to focus on here today is the missteps in the Teresa Halbach investigation, where the bones are the main issue, and it's things happening around the bones and around the finding of the bones, right? So to start off, I'm going to say much of what I'm going to talk about today is going to be covered in a previous video I've done. I will leave the link to that video below. Okay, it's basically my video about where I follow the what happens kind of with the bones and stuff like that. And that video it's just there's a lot of stuff there for you to see kind of what was happening with the bones, the barrels, things like that, how things were discovered. And that sort of stuff. So I would suggest if you haven't, I imagine most of the people that are here for the premiere, 99% of you, have already seen the Bones video and know exactly what that's all about. And so you probably don't need to go rewatch it. But if you haven't seen that previous video, like I said, the link's down below. You can go and check that out real quick and then come on back, because that will give you some of the background of a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today. And then I'm going to be showing you other documents now. Other documents, other tweet from Jerry, about the Manitowoc County coroner and some things like that, so that you guys will be able to understand some other little issues that are happening, really kind of peripherally and kind of not, directly in the line. Where we are going to start today is with pointing out all the people that shouldn't have been there, and with particular emphasis on a certain retired Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department officer named Michael Bushman. That's where we're going to start here. I'm going to be showing you a document that illustrates that Michael Bushman was on the original arrest party for Stephen Avery back in 1985 on that bogus charge, on those ridiculously bogus charges. And Michael Bushman was a part of that farce as well, one of the arresting officers there. Okay, I think that's interesting, and I think it may be obvious to some of you why that's interesting. But for those of you who don't know that yet, you probably haven't watched my previous video. So maybe hit pause on this, open another tab, and go watch that one, and come on back. But I am going to show you right now proof that Michael Bushman was present in the arrest party of Stephen Avery in 1985 for the his alleged rape of Penny Burnson. Okay, so I just want to illustrate this real quick before we get to the fact that way too many people that shouldn't have been part of this investigation were. So, but just a little precursor here to show you Bushman's involvement. All right, guys, this is a section of a report from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. All right, so this is basically where they're going to Avery's house after the rape of Penny Burnson. There's a team of officers, several at least officers, Froelich, Peterson, Arland, and then down here is the important one. Sergeant Peterson transported him to the Sheriff's Department, and he was followed by Officer Bushman and Duke. Bushman, folks. Okay, Bushman was very good friends with this guy right here, Sergeant Peterson at the time, who we know became head sheriff, right? So that's where we see here Officer Bushman has a connection to the 85 bogus arrest of Stephen Avery. And in the midst of the Teresa Halbach investigation, when Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department wasn't even supposed to be involved at all, they're actually bringing out retired Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department officers to help in an investigation where none of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department officers should have been involved in the least way. So what does that tell you? And the reason why Michael Bushman was out there was he was helping search and helping doing things. He actually, because of his insisting, crime scene tech Ertl was called all the way out to Kuss Road to dig up a dead stump because of Michael Bushman. And that's all in the video, the first link for the first video link in the description below. In that video, you'll see all that. So this is interesting, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is, like I said, remember, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department wasn't supposed to be there at all, and they brought out a retired Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department officer who had direct link to Stephen's arrest in 1985 to help in the Halbach investigation. That should say and tell you a little something about their ethics here, and, well, I should say their lack of ethics. Anyways, all right, just wanted to show everybody that. So the reason why this is so important is, folks, think about it. All right, think about it. Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department not supposed to be there at all, yet they are. Right now, here's the extra rub, though. Okay, and here's where we're going to refer a little bit to the little interview between Rookie and Kratz recently, right, for convicting a murderer. We heard Kratz say, "What do I need the coroner for? What do I need the coroner for? I need an anthropologist. I need blah, 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 blah," right? And he's saying, "What do I need? They just come and kick the body," right? That's his, and say they're dead. That was Ken Kratz's famous quote. Okay? Right. Well, I'm going to show you a tweet now from Jerry Buting. Well, before we do that, let me just say this. We know that Deb Kakich, the Manitowoc County coroner, was barred from being on the Avery property for the investigation. Now, that's odd, right? Seeing as every other department of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is allowed on. But it gets even stranger when you realize that the coroner's department of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is the sole department that doesn't have a conflict of interest with Stephen's 1985 case. Right? Isn't that odd? Okay. Then we have the fact that why I wanted to show you that document, that we have Michael Bushman, a retired Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department who was directly involved in the arrest of Stephen in 1985, who is in part of this investigation. But Deb, the coroner, is barred. That's odd. And it's even more odd, okay, when you find out after seeing Kratz's protestations in his interview with Rookie for convicting a murderer, when he says, what do I need the coroner for? I need an anthropologist. Okay? Just remember, that's his words. That's what he said. That's what he needed, was an anthropologist. By the way, they never had an anthropologist come on to Avery Salvage Yard. They never did. The prosecution. The next thing I'm going to show you is a tweet from Jerry Buting. Okay? It's a tweet from Jerry Buting that's going to tell you just exactly who all was lined up to come out with Deb, the Manitowoc County coroner, Sheriff's Department coroner, right? Here we go. So here's a tweet from Mr. Rookie, obviously the guy who interviewed Ken Kratz, and he's second-guessing himself a little bit and saying, I might be wrong, maybe there only a medical examiner came into the scene, into the quarry, not an anthropologist. Gotta read up again. To which Jerome Buting obviously sees it and says, hey, look, KK was blowing smoke out his ass again. State never called any forensic anthropologist to the quarry or to the Avery Salvage Yard. They shipped Eisenberg a box of bones to Madison. Coroner Kakich assembled a team, including a forensic anthropologist, to go to the scene, but they barred her from the scene. Right? So that's the interesting bit right there, folks. Coroner Kakich assembled a team, including a forensic anthropologist. Guys, don't you get the feeling that it's because anybody who was trying to do this right was getting turned away? Anybody who wasn't willing to play ball with the higher-ups was getting turned away? Because that looks to me like Deborah Kakich was coming in here to figure out what happened. She was going to bring the right people, a forensic anthropologist, like which should have been called for here. It's when you see that somebody's trying to do something right and that's the person that gets barred, that's telling to me. So, just an interesting tweet from Jerry to clear things up. Hope you guys find it interesting. So let's ask ourselves, what would explain that? Somebody was ready to show up with a forensic anthropologist. Like, they keep saying that's what they needed. And somebody was willing to show up, somebody was ready to show up with one, and they blocked that person. Like, what explains that? Well, I'll tell you what, for me, explains it pretty well, is that those bones they found there looked obviously dumped there. They knew that they looked obviously dumped there, and they didn't want anybody to know about that. So these detectives and stuff started immediately trumping up their fire inspection certifications to being forensic experts in collecting cremains somehow. And this all goes over. Nobody cares. It's like, fine. Courts, Wisconsin all sign off that this was fine. Shocking. But anyway, when we had the actual county's coroner ready to show up with a forensic anthropologist, and they get blocked. Just run the scenario through your head, and it becomes obvious that they're hiding something. No matter what, the decision to bar Deb Kakich was a bad move. It is very telling that they were hiding something because of who Deb had ready to come with her. Wasn't just Deb the coroner. No. Wasn't just her herself. And that is what makes this all the more important. So, all right, moving to the next thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the hip bone found in the quarry, right? It was declared to be possible human by Leslie Eisenberg, the anthropologist that the box of bones was shipped to in Madison, right? Dr. Eisenberg got to see nothing about the collection of these bones. There's no pictures of the collection of these bones. By the way, I have another video that I'm going to be posting below that will be about basically the guy who I guess gallantly takes the responsibility for there being no pictures. Anyways, yeah, his name's Sturdivant, and I'll leave that video below for you guys also to go check out. So that's where we see him basically trying to take responsibility for the fact that no pictures are taken. I mean, just there's so much stuff around these bones, folks, that's just odd and just not. It doesn't work. It doesn't wash. It looks fishy, and the decisions made by the state don't make sense. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? So I'm going to show you right now a document where we see where Leslie Eisenberg is talking about this hip bone actually still has bones articulated. And that tells me it was, for me, that means that it started with a fire of burning these cremains out in the quarry in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And as things got moved around and were getting moved, this fell out and cooled off and didn't stay under the intense heat that many of the other bones did or whatever. And one bone stayed articulated in its socket or whatever that she was able to say. I'm going to show you that. And because we can still see a bone that's still articulated, that tells me that that's closer to the original burn site. Okay? And the reason why it stayed articulated partially too is because it wasn't collected by the knuckleheads over in Stephen Avery's burn pit. These bones that were being found in the quarry were being collected individually and kind of, probably being treated very gingerly and careful. And that's probably how Leslie Eisenberg was able to determine that it was still articulated as well. But there's a lot of reasons why we can't really tell much from this. But the fact that we have this articulated bone, this part of this hip bone, even though she declares it as possibly human only, I don't know if that could have been because of pressure from higher ups or not. Look, we know a lot of people were getting bullied by law enforcement in this case. Guys like Josh Redant went out and got a lawyer because he got tired of being asked about his account of the fire. Anyway, see, just other weird things around the bones, the fire. It goes on and on and on. And the state's narrative is just weak and wobbling constantly, and it doesn't really hold water, right? So I'm going to show you this report where we find out that hip bone, in fact, it was still articulated with another bone, a fact which I think is very interesting. Okay, folks, so this is from Forensic Anthropology Case Report from Dr. Leslie Eisenberg of December 4th of 2006, right? She's talking about tag number 7964, as well as the sharp horizontal through cut. She's talking about blade cut marks and blade and sharp vertical cuts, and that sort of stuff. But then it gets down here to where she talks about right side of the sacrum and the still articulated auricular surface of the ilium. Okay, so that's bones that are still articulated together. And like I said, to me, that is a huge deal. Now, this bone is deemed to be of possible human origin. That is odd to me. But, hey, look, it was found with a bunch of other bones that were deemed to be absolutely human by Leslie Eisenberg. This one, for some reason, she says is possible human. So, that would be part of the reason why, KZ being able to test these bones would have been helpful in many ways. And the fact that the state got rid of this evidence is just wrong and in violation of statute, and the way that they tried to hide and obstruct what they had done is also a violation of Stephen's due process rights. So, but like I said, here is that from Dr. Leslie Eisenberg's report talking about the still articulated bones found in the quarry. So you can see there are some interesting things going on around these bones. Obviously, Michael Bushman, from 1985 arrest of Stephen Avery, and he's there on the scene, and he's kind of calling some shots. He actually gets Ertl pulled out all the way over to Chris Road to dig up a dead stump. And to go out and dig up that dead stump, they get called away from the burn barrels they're sifting. They were on burn barrel 2 when they get called away. And then as they get called away, burn barrel 4, which had just been sifted, gets put on a truck to go back to Avery's salvage yard, which is odd. But then the very next day, Ken Kratz is talking to Officer Hawkins and tells Hawkins that he wants the barrel brought back from Avery's salvage yard. Ken Kratz knew it went and wanted it to come back. I mean, there's so many bizarre things. That's from the first link below, that bit. You can see it in that video, where the documents, you see the reports of Deputy Hawkins, where he's talking about Ken Kratz told him to get that barrel back from the salvage yard. It's just all this stuff around it. I mean, I encourage you, if you haven't checked out the couple of videos below, that if you haven't seen them, I do encourage you to go check them out. Especially the one where I go to Avery salvage yard and I'm talking about cadaver dog Brutus and the prowess of the cadaver dog Brutus, and that cadaver dog Brutus really didn't go all that nuts around Stephen Avery's trailer, which you would think if there was a big old bloody scene there, something would have caused Brutus to but all he did was bark at one spot of Stephen Avery's blood in the bathroom. That was it. He alerted. That's his thing. He alerts when he barks. After that, he just starts reacting to other dogs, and it's just like he's bored and he's uninterested and everything. And this is all like on December 6th, right? And stuff. It's just bizarre, really truly bizarre. So I encourage you to check that one out, particularly because you get to see a bit of the salvage yard if you guys are interested. So that link is below. And like I said, we're going to move on right now to show you what was going on, what the state did in 2011 that has now got them in the hot seat. And this is why Zellner is really taking them to task right now, why she has a huge bone to pick with them at the moment, because they gave away this evidence that they shouldn't have. It's protected by Wisconsin statute, and the fact that they gave it away is a problem. And they knew it was a problem because they tried to hide what they did from Stephen and his attorneys. This is huge. It's a big problem, and we're waiting right now for Judge Sukowitz to rule, to see which way she's going to go on it. So it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, but she has another 30 days in which to think about this and stuff. So anyways, here we go. I'm going to show you a little bit right now I'm going to show you from Queso where it talks about where the report is that talks about the state going in, that they argued at trial weren't worth talking about. They wouldn't even spend 20 seconds on, right? And they're picking bones out of those bags to give back to the Halbach. So what does that tell you? It's basically an admission. That's the way I feel about it. It's an admission that those are Theresa's bones, and that they were desperate to not have. They were so desperate to hide that from the jury that they lied and said that these bones weren't important, that they wouldn't even spend 20 seconds on them. And that's the impression they left the jury with. So we're going to go ahead and show you now the reports of what they did, and I'm going to explain a lot about what happened and why they're in the hot seat. Okay, so here's where we get to the current issue at hand, which all the previous issues I've been talking about in this video kind of build up to this. So here we go. Type of activity, return items, date of activity, 9/20 of 2011. Just let you guys know that is just after Stephen had appealed to the Wisconsin Supreme Court on his original appeal and had been denied. It's literally just right after that. However, Brendan's appeal hadn't even really got going yet. So, Deputy Jeremy Hawkins. At approximately 9 a.m., I, Jeremy Hawkins, along with Mark Wiegert of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, Attorney Thomas Fallon, and Attorney Norman Gahn, removed from evidence all property tag numbers that contained human bone. Thought the most that could be said about them was they were possible human. That's interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Attorney Gahn and Attorney Fallon viewed the items under the property tags, and along with Dr. Leslie Eisenberg's report, determined which bones could be returned to the Halbach family. Now here's the interesting thing, folks. Norm Gahn, is the one who wrote the statute that is now biting them in the butt right now. He's the one that wrote it. There's so many levels of how in the know they are of how wrong this was, and yet they did it anyway. Is it because they didn't want these bones to ever be able to be tested to definitively prove what lying sacks of crap they are? Was this just another avenue of them obfuscating that and muddying the water and making it just hard to get any real facts in the case? Because it seems like that is what they are more interested in than anything else in this case. Justice seems the farthest thought from their minds, in my mind. And don't tell me because they're doing this for the Halbachs. What? You're reawakening that family's grief to give them bones that you just recently said you don't know what they are? You reawakened a family's grief to give them something that you don't know what it is? Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't want to quote King Kratz, but I mean, when he asked Brookie if he was smoking crack, but I mean, I don't know, but the whole thing is you got to be kidding. Why are things like this constantly happening? Why are these things coming out that cut against the state? And then it goes through to tell us what property tag numbers. Obviously, here's the one I was just showing you guys about right here, the possible human one that we were just talking about with the articulated bone. That's the one my mouse is on right now there. And it's talking about what bones they looked at and and whatever. But basically, the ones that KZ wanted to test are all right up in these first four here. These are the ones that KZ wanted to test, or most of these are ones that KZ wanted to test. And most of them were determined to be human bone, but they weren't determined to be Teresa's. So we go down here, they're talking about pulling all these bones out, photographing them, and then basically, in the end, after all the bone fragments were determined to be able to be returned to the Halbachs, they were determined to be able to be returned, folks. Right? I mean, it's just, anyway. Attorney Fallon and Attorney Gahn were completed. Let's see. Once it was determined that they could be returned, Attorney Fallon and Gahn were completed. The items were transferred to Wheating Funeral Home in the presence of Sergeant Investigator Mark Wiegert and myself. The packaging for all the items returned was retained by the Calumet County Sheriff's Department in secure storage. Deputy Jeremy Hawkins of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. So this also indicates to folks that Mark Wiegert was also a part of this and is fully on board with this. And even he, I mean, by him being here and being part of this and transporting this, it would suggest that he believes that those were Teresa's bones as well. And if they believed that those were Teresa's bones, that would have been a problem at trial. And they did not say so at trial because they didn't want the jury to believe that those were Teresa's bones, because they knew that the jury would then have questions of where was Teresa murdered, what really happened. So this report is very disturbing. This report, for those of you who don't know, was actually held back and not handed over to Kathleen Zellner or Stevens appellate attorneys at the time when this page of the report, or these 2 pages, this report was added to CASO. It was not forwarded to Stevens attorneys. And according to Wisconsin statute, before anything was given back, Stevens should have been given notice and had a chance to either deny or to protest, or to be able to hire a forensic examiner to examine them or whatever. But there has to be warning, and you can't just do it without telling anybody. And that's exactly what the state did. They didn't want anybody to know what they were doing. Okay? And they hoped nobody would ever find out. But the fact is that what they did here was tantamount to a admission. I mean, it basically is an admission that they're saying those are Teresa's bones. But that's not what they told the jury. And that's the problem here. It's the way they represented it to the jury and how disingenuous their deeds are. So, all right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to move on now to showing you the ledger of the day that these things were transferred. The ledgers were also hidden from Avery's attorneys and his appellate attorneys, and were not added when to the updated record when Kathleen Zellner became Stephen Avery's attorney. Those pages were not added to the record when it was being collected. So, like I said, folks, more and more stuff that looks like the state's the one playing games. The state is stalling and playing games and obfuscating and doing all the things that they want everybody to believe Zellner's doing, but it's them. And that's an important thing for people to realize, I think. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little segment of the ledger that was held back, also from Stephen's attorneys and Zellner. Wasn't made part of when the record was being collected for Zellner. This was not included, and I think that's interesting. But it's a segment from it where we see that Officer Hawkins is transferring these things to Officer Wiegert to be where they're eventually going is the Weeding Funeral Home, right? So that's and just remember this ledger was not handed over either. So this would have been one more thing that could have pointed to this and let Zellner know much earlier that these bones had been given back, even though Fallon has been in the past has been talking with her and was agreeing to let her test these bones when he knew dang well that they weren't even there anymore. So it's all this consistent, the state just keeps telling these things that aren't, saying these things that aren't true, and making these representations that aren't true, and it's just a huge problem, really. So, okay, so moving on. Here we go. I'm going to show you now that little piece of the ledger, and just remember, these ledgers were not handed over. These were also held back because the state was trying to hide what they had done because they knew it was wrong. So, all right there, folks. So this is from the ledgers. This is obviously where we see a signature of Jeremy Hawkins. He is transferring this to Mark Wiegert, Sergeant Mark Wiegert, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. So that's how many people had their hands in this that basically believed that these were Teresa's bones. And look, it clearly says over here, number 9, which is item number 9, of the ledger. If I had there's another page of this where it shows item 9 and it kind of gives a list of what's there. Many of you have seen the ledgers, but here's what's interesting here, right? Is it says only human. It's pointing out that the bones here are only human bones. So yeah, just very interesting stuff, folks. Very, and this, like I said, this along with a bunch of other ledgers that were important. And that would have tipped Stephen Avery's appellate lawyers and even Kathleen Zellner off as to what they had done with these bones, and they were hiding it. They were actively hiding it and keeping it from getting out. And that is the dishonesty of the state in this, folks. That's what they keep doing. That's their MO. And trust me, it can't be just a coincidence that there's so many things that the state is doing that seem dishonest and seem diabolical. It just can't be by accident. It truly can't. All right, so what this all amounts to is what KZs right now are trying to argue in court and trying to get into court so that she can get at the state about some of this stuff and ask questions about some of this stuff to really get at it, because right now the state looks like they were actively hiding something and all that stuff. So it's pretty crazy. So I wanted to go ahead and do a video with just like documentation, obviously a tweet from Jerry Buting, things like that, where you people can understand here what was really going on and what was being hidden. It's important to think about what the amount of what was being hidden and suppressed and controlled. If you're running an honest investigation, you shouldn't have all this. And the cherry on top is the fact that the agency that wasn't supposed to be there was. Even retired officers who were involved with Stephen's 1985 arrest were there. I mean, it's just so farcical. It's beyond belief, really, in a lot of ways. Right? So, if you guys are interested, I know some of you really don't like the lives, but I mean, if you're really interested, go back and look at the lives with Travis and I, and even Tracy Struncy got involved eventually. And go back and listen to those lives when we talk about the recent filings and what's going on right now. because those will help you understand the legal of this and what's going on and how things proceed in court. So I know some of you don't, the lives are long and they, it's hard to commit that amount of time and stuff, and I do appreciate that. But for the legal stuff, the ones where I have Travis and Tracy on, I would say make some time for it. Set yourself aside a little time on Sunday or something to sit down and listen to the legal analysis when I have Tracy and or Travis on. But like I said, I still do appreciate all those who originally got with me in the beginning because of this type of video where I get on, talk with you, give you my thoughts, show you some more documents, give you my thoughts, show you some more, things, give you my thoughts and that sort of thing. So this one's for you guys today. I do appreciate my original, subscriber base that was very loyal to me before Mamathon, or before Mam 2 came out, so I wanted to go ahead and put together a video like this. But like I said, get on those lives where we're doing the legal analysis. Set aside the time to be able to listen to those, because they are full of gems in terms of understanding how the legal process works in this. So that's it for today. Hope you guys understand the issues with the bones. Going to probably be coming back, like I said, with 2 others. One about the key and Colburn and all that sort of stuff, and one about most likely everything regarding Brendan Dassey. So I'll do, all just missteps in the Halbach investigation videos, but I will make them as uploads, just like this one, so that you guys can, for those of you who enjoy it more in this format. So, also don't forget, the Guiltathon might be coming out. That's why I remember I've got my little Mamathon tie here today. Hope you guys like that. I love it. I think it's awesome. This thing is, it's a really nice tie too, right? It's, so what do you guys think? It looks nice, right? Anyway, I hope during the premiere I'll be able to get everybody's opinion about that in the comments there. So anyway, and I also have another tie that you guys will be seeing me wear tonight with Travis. We're going to be talking about the Netflix motion to dismiss that they're filing against Andy Colburn and stuff, and so they're filing with the court to have the claims against them basically dismissed. So we're going to be talking about that motion tonight with Travis. I'm going to have a little different tie. Instead of Mamathon, it's going to be a Koze's Wrecking Crew tie. So I did want to say one other thing in terms of the Guiltathon, the potential Guiltathon. Now, I don't know if it's actually going to happen, right? But I saw a trailer. It looks like it could be, kind of serious. I could see where possibly SAIG, the Stephen Avery is guilty Redditors, might want to say a few things and everything. So I can see where this might actually happen. I know there's some people that are skeptical about it. Well, we'll see. Obviously, we'll see. They haven't set a date. They just say soon. But if they do, if it does happen, I want to encourage everybody to be respectful. Okay, when you go on, if you decide to go on their Guiltathon and get involved in the live chat, just remember, you can obviously argue evidence and things like that if you want to in things or have bones picked, but remember, no vulgarities, don't use profanities, don't rely on those things to make your point. Be respectful and realize that it's difficult what they're trying to do. If they do this, just realize it's difficult to do. I have respect that they're even going to attempt it if they actually do. I have respect. And if they pull it off as well as we did, I will even have more respect for them. I want to make everybody aware of one thing that maybe you all aren't aware of. But during Mamathon, many guilters were there. They were actually aware of what we were doing. They were coming on and they were watching at certain points. Maybe not the whole 48 hours, of course, but they were getting on at certain points. The Mamathon was posted in a Facebook group that contains both sides, and so we were getting. So there was a lot of people that were finding it there, commenting on that post, and so I know a lot of those people were coming over to the lives. They were always respectful. There was not a whole lot of disrespect. So I just want everybody to remember, they were pretty respectful of us, what we were doing. We need to kind of do the same thing back. So I just wanted to say that. I know I probably don't have to. I know that after the way Mamathon went and the way everybody came together and the way all the negativity dropped away, I probably don't need to say this. But just in case just remember, let's be classy, and let's represent Stephen and Brendan in a positive way. So, just wanted to say that one other thing about Guilt-a-thon, and you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.